All right, you should have got that annoying little voice that tells you recording is happening now. So I am Taylor. I'm the chapter health manager. So essentially what I do is I work with all of our chapters and support you guys through creating resources, creating things like what's new in HQ. So you get communication from us weekly on like what's happening, what's expected from you, all of those things. And I also manage our chapter health specialists that work with our chapters in particular that might need a little extra support to get them on the up and up so then they can be successful for time to come. So that's where you'll mostly see me engage with folks. I also have some chapters that I work with a little bit more closely as well that are on a chapter assistance plan that I also support them and like they need like support with 1 to 2 things. They're not like dire, but they just need like a little help so then they are on the right track. So that's where I come into place. So let's get cracking. I have a lot of slides, I feel like. So jumping in, your officer duties and expectations, here are general just requirements on paper for your position. So in general, for an officer, you're expected to use that at omegaphialpha.org email address and G Suite that's like attached with it, utilizing OPA portal and making sure you're logging onto it, tracking your chapter progress in general on OPA portal. So that can look like putting your meeting minutes on there, service projects, service hours, a lot of chapters do their sisterhood events, their membership requirements, all of those things on OPA portal and utilizing it as a tool to just see how your chapter is progressing. Respond in a timely manner to communication from us. That's within 72 hours. Complete your monthly officer reports on the 15th of each month, completing all those due dates for the semester as well, attending at least one Officer Leadership Academy session a semester, and then just being an example of a leader for your chapter. Now it's president. Logistically, you preside over your chapter meetings, you preside over your EB meetings, you guide the work of all your officers, including improving their own leadership skills and your own. You serve as the chapter's main communication link with campus, the national org, and any chapter advisors. On convention years, you have to make sure your chapter has 2 representatives to send. Usually, you will be one of them. For a lot of chapters, it's kind of the way it flows. They do their president, and then they do an elected official for another one. For tasks, you help to appoint committee chairs, appoint other non-elected officers, ensure chapters in good standing with your university as an organization, complete any certification that might come attached with that, ensure all your deadlines are met, managing all the deadlines, managing conflict within your chapter in a professional manner. That's kind of where you tag team with your VP. Host a chapter exec board retreat, host a chapter exec board elections based on your local constitution, set expectations for your chapter and the EB on how to properly uplift our cardinal principles. So paperwork things, these are like your big things that like you were leading to make sure they are completed. So your mid-year report, those are always due in December. It's usually December 15th. We don't really transition from that date a lot. But it's a summary of your first semester of school on how you guys are doing. Always recommended to complete at your last exec board meeting of the semester or your transition meeting, just so that the new officers get a glimpse into what they're inheriting, what's gone well, what hasn't, where are you standing with money, how are you standing with members? All of those things are included in the mid-year report, similar to the annual report, which is just the whole year at a glance. It's your job to make sure that that is completed. Next is chapter awards. These are annual, and this year's going to be a convention year, so they're really exciting because you actually find out who wins in person at convention, which is super fun. But it's really just showcase all the great work that your chapter accomplished. And you also have the opportunity to highlight members and officers that are doing the outstanding work that's helping your chapter succeed. I don't know if chapters realize, but the chapters who win receive money. So that's always a win. If you win the award, you win money for your chapter, which usually gets people excited about it, especially the members. Monthly officer reports, which I touched on earlier, but that's just a requirement across the board, all officers. I always say it's really smart to just complete these during your exec board meeting. Just take 5 to 10 minutes at the start of your meeting, do it together as a group, make sure your chapter has it done. Then you don't have to worry about, oh, we're going to get decline points when we do our chapter checkout, anything like that, because it's always being completed on time. Things to expect. So here are things that are just going to come up during your position that you should prepare for. They may be things that you're already doing, or it may be things that kind of dropped off after COVID. They may have dropped off as officers transition. It happens a lot. So don't be like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong, da, da, da. It happens. And that's why we have meetings like this. So then you know kind of what our expectations are. So as president, you're setting the tone. You're responsible for like the general run of show for your chapter, and you serve as the director for leadership, essentially. So with that comes you being the conductor. I really loved analogies today for chapter meetings and executive board meetings. You ensure that each semester a successful symphony happens. And you also assume the role of like being the face of your chapter. I feel like not a lot of people talk about it, but you do end up being the face of the chapter when you become president. The next slide, I'm going to give you some guiding questions to consider, and you can also include these when reflecting as an exec board when you have your retreat. So here are some guiding questions I always recommend to officers that I utilize while I was president for my chapter that really helps set us up for success. How do we communicate important things as a chapter? How do we communicate fun things as a chapter? How well does all of our chapter understand what exec board actually does? How prepared does chapter feel going into the semester? Is there an anonymous way to share feedback? Where do people go if they have a concern, a suggestion, or want to highlight something great? How can the chapter feel excited to come back and feel like they belong? What can you do to prepare chapter for an amazing semester? Our institution and OFIA provides a lot of resources. Do we know all of them? And then what were our strengths and areas of growth as a chapter last semester? So these are some really helpful questions that I always recommend for presidents to put into the mix. See what answers you get across your exec board. You might find that everyone is not on the same page, which is okay. It happens. And it's a really good opportunity to get everyone on the same page and make sure that you have a cohesive front going into the semester. So next, I'm going to touch on planning an exec board retreat. So if you've never done one, it is okay. I would highly recommend doing one because it's a really good point for you to get your stuff together before having your first chapter. So an EB retreat, it's not only like associated with chapter success, but it's usually the reason for it. It gives officers the opportunity to take a step back and assess your chapter and then make plans to guide the chapter through the coming months. So it's also a time for just like brainstorming ideas, which can be really exciting for a lot of people because they need support and they're able to do it together as a team. You can express concerns, provide praise, and appreciate the cardinal principles in an informal environment. So I always recommend it should happen 2 to 4 weeks before your first chapter meeting. And you should make sure that bonding happens, plans for the semester are able to be solidified. You set goals, you share expectations, clarify roles and responsibilities. Sometimes some roles have a little bit of overlap. So your exec board retreat is a really good place to name, here's what this person is over, here's what this person is over. It might come into play a lot when you have co-directors. Sometimes one person is really comfortable with like logistical stuff while the other person is really comfortable with like the person leading things and they have to talk to people and do those things. So that might be a good split for them. But naming that in the beginning will really help remove any conflict that might happen down the line. Review your chapter norms. So every chapter has their own norms. They might have different things that they do that just help them lead with success. They might have traditions that happen, etc. Like I know for Chi, we used to have Izzy that we would pass around after every chapter. That was just like a shout out and a praise where we would pass that on to someone new every chapter. That's something to just refresh everyone on so everyone knows what it's about and like what's the purpose behind it. And then lastly, setting and promoting the standard of collaboration. Sometimes people can get very in their own lane as they're trying to do their position. When you're exec board, you're a team. So just making sure that you're emphasizing that as you are the leader of the team so that everyone feels good coming into that space and using it as a space of creation and working together so then you can have a successful semester. And then a tip, there is an exec board retreat planning guide on OPA portal that I created to just help you think logistically. Where are we going to have this? Let's talk through the agenda. Here are things I would recommend to be in that space, etc. Leading meetings. This can be really scary if you've never led meetings. But I always say, ask yourself these questions. Why are you scheduling or attending this meeting? What do you want to accomplish or gain? How are you preparing for this meeting? What information will be exchanged or decisions need to be made? Who will be attending that I need to meet or gain their support? And when I say that, is there anyone that you need to meet with ahead of time so that they are kind of prepared for this meeting? Or everyone can just show up, they just need to have an agenda beforehand. So effective meetings begin and end on time. This is really crucial. If the meeting goes over, people are tapped out, they don't really want to be there anymore. If it begins late, it kind of sets the standard that, oh, I don't actually need to be here on time if it doesn't even start on time. Use an agenda. It's just really helpful. Even if you do something similar to how I started our call today of just saying, like, here's the game plan for today. The first hour looks like this, the second hour looks like that. Or if you want to do, hey, the first 15 minutes, this is what we're doing. The rest of the chapter will look like this. It's just really helpful so people feel like they understand what they're in for. Use an ideas bin. So what can be really helpful as we're going through the meeting, so there's not crazy interruptions, especially during chapters, since people want to be in and out, is have people write down their ideas so then they can just pass it to that officer at the end of the meeting. Or if your meetings have space, have time for those questions, you can have people write it down, and then once they're finished presenting, they can just leave space for, are there any questions, any suggestions, anything like that that we want to bring forward before the next person comes up and presents. Establish your rules of the day. So like no cell phones or texting, make sure people are doing homework during chapter, make sure people are arriving on time, they're not interrupting others. You can find a way for like how to call out on people. You can do the raise your hand. I know some people get stressed out with that. You can also do a raise a rose. You can do snaps. There's just a lot of things that you can do to like pass the mic essentially. Try to control dominating individuals. We all might have one person in our chapter that loves to talk and their voice leads and needs to be heard, which is great. But sometimes they can dominate all of our discussions. So you as president, you're leading that space. So that's something to just be on the lookout for. So then everyone feels like they can be heard throughout your chapter meeting. Encourage teamwork. So allow everyone to comment and give feedback and just have a collaborative space that everyone feels welcome to. Allow for effective communication. So sitting in a circle, especially during exec board meetings, is like really helpful. Everyone can see each other, it flows, it's kind of nice. For standing when speaking, this might be good depending on your vibe during your chapter meetings. I think especially for like when new members come to visit, when they like leave, it could be really good for them to like stand, say their name. The membership director can have them answer like a funny question. So then you get to know people a little bit better before they join your space and things like that. Sitting by someone new, being focused, all of those things are just really crucial for having effective communication. Making sure expectations are just clearly communicated and understood, when to speak, when to listen, what do members need to come prepared to do or have with them. Hold yourself and each other accountable, come prepared to your meetings and just listen to each other while you're listening or while you're attending the meeting. And then don't be afraid to change locations. I know for our chapter for a really long time, we had our chapter meetings at the same place at the same time, and that was the standard. And then one semester, it all changed because they changed how we book rooms, and everyone was freaking out, but it was okay. It was fine. We just went to a new space. So don't be afraid to like change things up. Traditions are meant to be shifted and evolved based on where your chapter is. And it could be really nice to have a change of scenery. So don't be afraid to do that. I also feel like recruitment is when that happens the most because booking rooms can be kind of crazy during that time. So I made this little chart that I hope will be helpful of just sharing like what should happen at an EB meeting versus a chapter meeting. So exec board meetings should be used for planning, while chapter meetings should be used for communicating your plans and your expectations that go along with it. At your EB meeting, officers should give reports for what they are planning to do or need feedback on. Chapter, the officers are sharing with chapter the items that are confirmed and agreed upon by your full exec board. You shouldn't go into a chapter meeting being like surprised that something is being presented. Like, what is that? What is going on? That shouldn't happen. It should have been discussed at your EB meeting. At the EB meeting, you should have an agenda with like just main goals for the meeting. For chapter, I would always recommend having slides, and each officer puts their own slides on there and they're submitted by a due date. And that's just way easier for tracking things. With EB, you really shouldn't utilize the presentation. It should just be like the agenda, your secretary taking notes, and you're able to just have conversations organically and share ideas that feel comfortable across the group. And then for chapter, again, each officer just shares and presents for themselves. Exec board, helpful to sit in that circle, like I mentioned, or just like a big table and everyone's just like around it. Chapter, always suggest sitting strategically and just trying to encourage chapter to mix up who they sit with. Cliques are very easily able to be created. And so any way that you can like shake that up, whether it's making sure you do random seating every once in a while, or you have families sit together every once in a while, or you do intentional sisterhood activities in the middle of chapter, like doing a rock, paper, scissors war, or doing something that just gets people engaged and connected with each other. It'll just help to get everyone excited about chapter. This is mid-semester officer evaluation. So each semester, you should really check in with your officers to just give them feedback on how they're doing and see if they need support one-on-one. So at your exec board retreat, I always suggest including goal setting. And then when you have this mid-semester check-in, it allows for you to check in on how they feel like they're doing on their goals. So check in with their goals, ask them to evaluate themselves on how they feel they are doing, ask what has been difficult for them, and you can ask where you can support them better during their time in this position that's left. And then chapter checkouts. So I mentioned this briefly earlier. This is a new process that was started last year. And this is essentially where we as a national organization meet with you as the president. We say, here's how your chapter did this year. Here are the 7 things that we are going to be looking at: email correspondence and utilization, completing of those due date items by that date, meeting your recruitment goals, your disassociation rates, and just like member retention in general. So how many people are going on LOA? How many people are disassociating? Like, how is this affecting your chapter? Slack utilization, financial stability and practices, and then service requirements. So you'll see in about March or April, you'll get an email from me saying, hi, chapter president, you have this requirement where you have to meet with a member of the chapter health team, and we are going to give you a grade on these things. And this is going to determine where you land. So this is something that you should always try to keep in your purview as you're working with your exec board on, hey, like, let's make sure that we are checking our emails and we are looking at Slack and monitoring if Taylor or Alyssa post something, or Virginia, the office administrator, sent an email saying, hey, these people haven't paid their dues. Have we responded to her? One thing that we are going to consistently try to do is CC you all as the president, since you help guide this piece around communication and setting the standard. And so you directly help improve or decline how you will get graded in this section. So this is kind of where we meet. I give you the feedback, and then from there, you have the opportunity to share it with the exec board and then share it with the new exec board as well. I usually call for the old president and the new president to be a part of this meeting, so then everyone's just in the same page. I also check in to make sure that you either have completed those final requirements, because usually during this time, the annual report is due, the financial report is due. And so have those things been initiated? Have you already started like the transfer to get the new officer on the bank account? Have the new officers been transitioned, etc.? So just making sure you're good and you're set thinking about your transitions process as well. So this will take place like April, May, June. I'll also probably offer the opportunity to have it done at convention, just depending. So yeah. And then I wanted to highlight this slide because I feel like president is a very unique position where you have a lot of things that just pop up. So here are some things that could pop up depending on your position and your chapter and your workflow, etc. Officer hours. So you might decide that you as president, you want to have office hours so people in your chapter can just come, tell you any concerns they might have, etc. Some of your other officers might decide to do the same thing. That's initially where I got Tea Time with Taylor when I was a chapter president. That was the name for my office hours that I did. Mid-semester check-ins with new members. So you might check in with your new members to just see how the process is going. Are they having any issues with their membership director? Is there anything that they want to call to your attention that you can then talk about and use as like a moment of reflection and adjustment for your membership director in their mid-semester eval? Checking in with your faculty advisor. Some people have really good relationships with theirs, and some people like have never seen them and don't talk to them at all. That's really up to you to build that connection with them. They could come in handy, especially if you have a conflict or you need a letter of recommendation when you're thinking about next steps for you. If you want to go to grad school or something like that, that's a good person that you could call on. Lead leadership opportunities, a lot of lead there. So if you don't have like a leadership chair or a leadership officer, you might be kind of stepping into that role to like help provide trainings for people to have different things or etc. We used to have well, I think we still do. We have a conference, the Student Leadership and Diversity Conference at USC on our campus. And so I help sponsor a couple spots for some of our actives to attend that and get a leadership opportunity. So you could think about, are there little things that you could be doing? So then everyone in your chapter is getting leadership experience, not just your officers. Attend convention, like I mentioned earlier. Attend university specific events on behalf of your chapter. Sometimes your university might have mixers or they might have specific trainings that they want to make sure someone in your chapter attends. So then they know that that information is being shared. That's something that you might want to think about, whether it's you attending or if you want to designate someone else to attend that, you can to kind of up their leadership opportunity to talk about OFIA in different spaces. You might have to lead in place of another officer. It happens a lot. Sometimes people have things happen. Sometimes you have to step in and show out and do their role for them, or you might have to just support them in completing their role the way that it's needed. I feel like sometimes recruitment is a place when this happens. They may need you to lead a workshop or lead a day or help them direct, be a traffic guide, be a check-in person, help direct actives because they're just wandering. There are a million things that can pop up and you kind of fill that void. Be a constant cheerleader and coach. I feel like sometimes this isn't talked about enough because you're cheering everyone on to do their role and you get to do all those great things. And sometimes you have to coach them and say, hey, like you're actually not doing the role that you kind of signed up for. And there are some things that you can improve on. Let me help you get there. Sometimes you might end up serving in ADO, alumni, or traditions because your chapter wasn't able to fill those positions. You host those elections. You might host an exec board mixer so people can just get to know you and what you do as a position. You might host a president's event. I always hosted a president's brunch for like the senior goodbye. And also just connecting with other organizations that might be able to give mini presentations during your chapter. So it's like a good way to start your chapter before you like hop in to connect with different orgs. Okay, I'm gonna pause for now. Any questions? So much information was just thrown at you guys. Any questions? Any things that like you want more clarification on? Anything like that?
Sorry, I have a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
The OLA events,
Yes.
are those the ones that we currently have invitations for?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then convention, could we take more than two people?
Yeah,
Do
of
you want
course.
to?
You're just required to have two for voting purposes. So we'll do business sessions, and that's when we'll talk about any adjustments that we have to do to like the national constitution. So each chapter that is in good standing gets two votes, which is what coordinates with the two delegates. So you would just need to decide who are your two voting delegates.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then for Slack, what is that used for specifically?
You said for Slack?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a space where we provide updates on things. I also do like motivational Monday things. But for the chapter officer channel in particular, we'll ask questions. we'll try to get feedback on like what's working, what's not working, what do you guys need during certain points in time of the semester. And then we'll get specific feedback. So for example, like one question that's on there now is we asked specifically like, when is your recruitment process? I think we had like 5 responses and we have 27 chapters. So we need more people paying attention and responding and making sure that you're noticing those things. And so things like that will pop up and like other variations. It's also a quick way to just get in touch with me or Alyssa or Virginia or anyone else. All of us are on Slack very frequently and we get notifications. So if it's something that can be communicated via Slack, maybe you want to send us a video or a voice memo instead of an email, you have that flexibility. And we'll do the same too, especially if like you're having issues with OPA portal. Sometimes it's easier for us to just screen record on OPA portal and send it to you on Slack. So then you can just see how to fix it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good questions too. Thank you for asking those. Any other ones?
You said for convention. Oh, okay, sorry. You said for convention, it's usually the president and then another delegate. So as the president, do I still have to be voted in by my chapter, or is it like an automatic type of situation? Because thinking about like convention, like getting us there has been kind of stressing me.
Yeah. So it depends on your local constitution. So like in ours, it said the elected president during that time would be attending and then we would vote on another delegate. If your constitution doesn't say that, you have the option to add it in, which is pretty cool, or you can just vote on which 2 delegates would do it. And it's kind of like a nomination process of like, okay, we're going to have nominations, nominate someone to potentially go to convention on our behalf. You do that, you let them know they're nominated, they can accept. If you have more than 2 people, then you do like a mini election of like them saying, here's why I want to go to convention, etc. And then you would do that process too. And then they'll be elected, and those are your officials that are going, or your delegates.
With convention, would it be expected that it be the newly elected president for the upcoming school year or us? Because like I'll be an alum at the end of this school year, so I would be like an alum by convention.
Yeah, it would be the person that's going to be president going into the next school year. I know some of y'all do elections in the spring, and then some do like calendar year elections. And so you'll be in the position until December. So it varies by chapter what works best. But yeah, definitely the person that's going to be president after convention is recommended. That's what happened to me. I was elected and then like went to convention. I was like, oh, sisterhood, this is a lot. And then went back to being on campus serving as president with a lot of ideas and things. So I feel like if you are president during your convention year, it's really a benefit. You get a lot more knowledge, it feels like. So then you can actually use that in your role. So that might be a
Is
selling
someone
point
that
too.
oh sorry
Go ahead, Sophia.
is someone that just graduated like not allowed to go,
You can still go.
but like as one of the 2 delegates you can't?
No, you can still go if you want.
Oh
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to like out her, Jenna is my advisor and she said that like we can't, but like no one in my chapter will go, but my little said she'd go if I can go too.
Oh,
So
that's so cute. I love it. But yeah,
Figure it
no,
out.
you should be fine, and we can talk about it more after this. And I can connect with Jenna too, and then we can all
okay.
figure it out together.
For those monthly reports that you mentioned, sorry, I like just took over as president and there was no information about this from my previous president that are like due on the 15th. Is it just one for all of the officers that we work on together, or does each officer have to submit one?
Each officer submits one. So it's like a quick, I don't even think it's like more than 15 questions. But it varies by officer. So each officer has their own set of questions. And it's just asking them like specific updates for their position. So like the service director one will literally ask like, have you started planning all 60%? Do you need help with whatever area of 60%? While the presidents will ask like, how's communication going? How are your exec board meetings going? How is it leading chapter, etc. So it varies for each officer.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problemo.
I just have like a question, more of like a request. It is so hard to find the monthly report thing. Like I'm not surprised that people have difficulty doing it because it's like nowhere to be found. Could
Mhm.
you send the link for it like in the President's Council Slack? Because nothing's really sent in there, so it'd be easier to like just find it quick. And maybe
Yeah.
for like all the other council ones too, because I feel like the ones that are chatted in a lot, it'll just get lost.
Yes, I can do that. And it comes to your um email once a month, as well as like I do like monthly reminder emails of like,
My bad. My bad.
they're coming, just so you no, I like sending multiple forms of communication just in case. So then you can just see it everywhere and it's not like, oh, I have no idea what this is. It's like, okay, it exists. I can find it potentially. So yeah, I can ping it in the channel so it just lives there, and I can do it in the chapter officer one too. I think that's a great suggestion. Any other things? And also, sorry if I look insane. I'm trying to type all your names for a sentence.
Are these slides going to be posted in the OPA portal to like look back on?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, perfect.
We'll definitely do that. And then if all these recordings work out the way that we think they will, fingers crossed, we'll also be able to post that to you. So then you can go back and watch the video, especially if you were like, oh, someone answered this question and I just can't remember exactly what the answer was, etc. Then you can come back to it. Any other questions?
This one might be kind of a dumb question, but does this count for one of our required LOA sessions or does it not?
Not a dumb question. And yes, it counts, which is great.
Okay.
That sounds like this should be really good for the our lovely little required officers. They will have a fair advantage, I think. Because that's literally what Officer Leadership Academy is about, is like helping you guys be better officers and feel confident in your leadership. So this hopefully does that for you all, especially going into your role this semester. Yeah, but hopefully you're able to attend the other ones. They should be really fun, and some of them are geared towards all your members as well. So then they have the opportunity to improve their leadership, especially if you guys have like not that leadership officer position full and you like get to the point in the semester where you're kind of just like strapped and you don't have capacity to kind of like think about what other leadership opportunities can I do for everyone. You can kind of promote that one. So then if anyone else is like, but I really want other leadership opportunities, they can attend a session and like get that advantage. Same for convention. We're gonna have some certification opportunity, which should be cool. So you can leave with something, which will be nice. But yeah, any other questions?
Sorry. So does that mean that if we're here right now, we don't have to go to any other of the OLA trainings?
Yes. Then you are all set. You made your requirements, which is key. Perfect. I'm gonna wrap up these last two sections. So next, resources. Okay, portal. This is like your biggest resource. Everything is on that bad boy. It can be overwhelming. I totally get it. And everything is there. Some big things to highlight: the standard operating procedures. That's literally like our code for how we do all the things and how we expect things to be done. So like your position has its own standard operating procedure. If you choose to like apply for selective recruitment, that's a standard operating procedure. So all the things are on there. Our national policies are on there for like thinking about like harassment policies, the alcohol and drug policy. All of those things are like on there. How-to videos of just like how to work OPA portal, since it could be a lot. That also lives on there. And then also training sessions. Oh, go back, girl. Training sessions that are led by Greek Track. They'll put it like on the calendar, like on your dashboard. It'll be like on the side. If you just want to like work with someone from Greek Track and just like figure out how to do it, how to work it. It's especially good for like your service directors if they're like really struggling with like putting the trackers, updating, and like creating grouped events, all of those things. That's usually where service directors get a little jumbled up. So that could be a really good place for them. Some specific files that are helpful for your position in particular. Best practices for chapter elections. I'll also say, like, if you end up needing support with leading your elections, like, please don't hesitate to reach out. I've helped many chapters lead their exec board elections in particular, and I have no problem like being there, being present, going over with you like some rules of the day, some funny sayings that might help like feel good, anything like that. I've led many, so I can totally help. Planning an exec board retreat, there's a guide on OPA portal. Chapter management 101, there's a presentation on there. Exec board officer contract template. So if you find that like sometimes your officers are just like not stepping up to the plate, or they're just like not remembering what goes into their role, we have a template of just like a contract they have to sign. This is something that I recommend to partner with your exec board retreat. So you're doing all the bonding, everyone's excited, yay, yay, yay. Also, we have this requirement, and you signing this contract, and I will hold you to it. So it's just a good way to just keep it up. Managing expectations presentation. Oh, Emily, go ahead.
The exec board officer contract template, is this something that could also apply to like chair positions?
Yes, you can totally do that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. Running effective meetings, trainings, setting goals for exec board, and then also a survival guide for small chapters, because our small chapters have a unique set of challenges. So we just created a guide specifically to support them. Your standard operating procedures. You'll hear me just say SOPs. So that's what it stands for. As I mentioned, some things that are just covered for officer ones or responsibilities, association procedures, service hours procedure, dues waiver, organizational structure, blah, blah, blah. If you're ever like interested in those things, you can always go and find them on OPA portal. When you click files shared by nationals, it'll be under like national operations, and then it'll say operating procedures and all those things. That's also where the national constitution lives too. National policies, there's mentioning, so like digital and social media policy, privacy, alcohol and illegal drugs, non-discrimination, hazing, accessibility, anti-racism, anti-retaliation, anti-harassment. We have a lot of policies because we really care, and we want to make sure that you have all the support you need coming from us as a national organization, and we take that very seriously. Mentioned earlier, the survival guide for small chapters. Parliamentary procedure. This is everyone's frenemy, so I'm gonna say. So parliamentary procedure is really great for leading meetings. It's really helpful. It can feel a little rigid. It's your chapter, it's your flow. And so make sure that you were able to take something from this, but don't feel like you have to like stay to it. You'll be able to see at convention like how it's supposed to be done. Like if you do parliamentary procedure by the book. I always find that like I've flexed when I lead spaces with parliamentary procedures, so it's okay to flex with spaces too. Don't look at that. I think there's a quick guide on, oh yeah, the cheat sheets. When you look at that, you might be like, what is going on? I totally understand. I was there too. Flex, do what works best for your chapter. You're not ruled by the book. If you don't need that rigid feeling, don't bring that into your space because you might lose members doing that. So just taking that into account, but it is available. You are able to get training on OPA portal and all of those things, and you have a cheat sheet. So lastly, talking about transitions. So this is really important and something that I think presidents will bear a lot of the weight of. And it's something that you're just having to constantly think about of just like preparing for the next you. So what's important? Transitions is what makes people want to hold positions or not. If people are having a hard time knowing what to do, they're not going to want to be the next person to be in that position if the person before them had no idea what they were doing. It kind of just sets up this feeling of like, oh, well, like our chapter does not prepare our officers, so why would I want to step into that role? Having good transition gives people confidence in their role and want to actually try new things besides what's required of them. They might have a bunch of innovative ideas, which help makes your chapter great because they're not always in survival mode. Let's see. And then lastly, transitioning sets people up for success. So preparing materials. So when you're coming into a new role, these are like the big three of what you should have access to. So our national standard operating procedure, that little sheet that says, as president, here's what expected from you from the national organization. You also have a president's manual. I'm going to update this because it's very old and it sincerely bothers me. So that will be getting updated for the next versions of you guys. And then lastly, your chapter-based manuals. This is the one that like usually the people coming into the role care the most about because it's based on your chapter, which makes sense. But it should have like list of contacts and previous things that have been done for the role. The contacts is really important for service director, especially of annual projects. You want to make sure that that contact information is being passed down. For presidents, one thing we like to do as president, we would just like leave our name, our personal email, and our number because like we were like, we know this can be tough. Reach out to us if you just need love or you need support, you have questions, so that you can hear from a previous president. Any password information, like for your @omegaphialpha.org email address, like transitioning those. You also have the option as president, as like your final act to say an email Virginia, which is the office email @omegaphialpha.org, and say, hey, can you just reset all of ours and give it the same password so then I can just tell the new officers what it is. You can do that and we'll do that for you. It's not that hard, so we can make sure that happens. Additional passwords to think about is like social media, any school-based platforms that you might have, if you have like a school-based website and someone has access to that, etc., making sure those passwords are done. Listing any loose ends that they may have done. So they may have started something but didn't finish it. This usually happens with the annual financial report. The new treasurer will not start it. And so then the old treasurer has to do it, but doesn't know that it's an expectation for them. And so that becomes a loose end that just takes longer and longer. And then it becomes an issue with us on the national organization because it was part of their requirement. And then lastly, any continuous expectations. So what do you do in your role? What's expected of you from a chapter level, and then going from there. And then next, just thinking about your officer transition meeting. So you have your new officers elected, now what? You have this final exec board meeting where you have your outgoing and your incoming officers and everyone is present. I think of this in two parts. So part one, your outgoing officers conduct your normal exec board meeting. This is a great time to talk about the last duties that need to be fulfilled, and then complete your mid-year or annual report for nationals. That's also a really good way to just like reflect in general when you're doing those reports, because it's asking you like how much money is in your savings, how much money is in your checkings, how many members did you recruit, how many people ended up disassociating, going LOA, etc. So it's like a really good, oh, well, this gives us the time to reflect on what happened this semester. Part two is just having those outgoing and incoming officers chat about expectations, answer questions, talking about any loose ends, etc. together. So that's like their one-on-one time to just like debrief on, here's how to do this position. Do you have questions? Here's the manual, etc. They can also decide if they want to do that part two separately. So you might decide, let's do everything in one space together, or you might say, do the part two by yourself. Make sure you set up a time though, and let me know when you're going to be meeting. And then what things should incoming officers know, how to get started. I feel like this is really obvious, but sometimes it's forgotten. They're just given a lot of information, but not like what comes first. So any way that you can just share how to start their position, the better. Any loose ends, that position manual, and then the nationals SOP. And then that is my last slide, right on time. Okay. Any other questions about the next set of things that I presented, or questions in general?
I have more of like a general question.
Yeah.
So I had one of my members reach out to me and she's really interested in like potentially going into PR next semester, and she does PR things on the side where she'll get like sponsorships from other brands, and she's having an interview next to be like a brand sponsor for Innisfree, and she wants to know if we would be able to like do like an OPA / that like sponsored post, that it would be like a sisterhood spa day sponsored by them. Would we be allowed to do that and post it?
That's a Casey question. Yeah, I'm gonna put in I'm gonna put in the chat Casey's email. Let me find it really
Okay.
because she's our what's it called? Communications director.
Mm.
So we can confirm with her. I want to say no, but I don't want to tell you no, and then like that's a free opportunity for you. And so I want to make sure because I feel like that
Okay.
would be cool, but it's like a line since we're a
Yeah, exactly.
501c4.
I didn't want to like promise from what I was reading on like OPA's website and stuff like that. I don't think we would be able to do it, but I also wanted to like double check here just to make sure. And I didn't want to like give her false hope. So I was like, I'll talk to nationals before we confirm and stuff like that.
Oh, here it is. Copy email. Okay, just put that in the chat for you, Jada.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? All thumbs up. That makes me feel good. Thanks. Okay, well, did everyone hopefully learn something new or something they could incorporate into their position that might be helpful? Love the head nods. Yes. Okay, good. That is perfection. That makes me feel good. Perfect. Well, I will allow the gates to be opened. So you are free to go. Thank you guys so much for logging on and meeting your requirement, which is always important. If you have additional questions that pop up over the course of the semester, like this is not a good luck, goodbye, whatever. But instead, like, let me hold your hand as you are leading all of these amazing people alongside you, and we are support. So please utilize us. Do not suffer in silence if anything is going crazy. We know sometimes things just pop off, so please reach out to us. We understand y'all are students and you are humans first, and so I definitely want to acknowledge that. But yes, thank you guys for coming. You can stay on if you have more stuff you just want consultation support on. I'll be here for like the next hour, and then I'll pop into the main room probably in like 5 minutes in case anyone needs like logistical transition help, because sometimes technology is awful. So I'll be helping with that. And then Sophia, no, it's optional, only if you need support or have consultation needs. So y'all are free to go, and I'm going to stop recording so it doesn't just keep showing you.